What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So let's take a look at a few aspects of the game that we gleaned from pretty much final day of the August showcase with IGN for Gotham Knights. Now, of everything else that we'd seen, we had gameplay, we had trailers, villain trailers, skills, all of that. But one thing stood out in the entire conversation. Now, I know you're probably thinking it's probably the part where they did not yet allow the IGN reporters to get their hands on the game. I'm sure that gave you a little bit of the cyber vibes because remember, Cyberpunk 2077, one of its very first gameplay unveiling, the developers were the ones actually playing the game. Now, I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. If you played Cyberpunk 2077 on PC, you'll know that the game was actually in a good state at that time in terms of performance and, quality and stuff. They had to finish some quality of life things, but that's not necessarily the biggest worry because it seems IGN will eventually get their hands on the game before release and reviewers as well. So we'll be able to get that side of things and possibly demos with PlayStation subscription service. What really did catch my mind was when I think it was Jeff Eleanor or Patrick Redding mentioned something about the way you fight crime in Gotham and also alluded to the fact that you can't necessarily clean out the entire city or solve, all of the crime in Gotham. And so the way the game is going to be structured would require for you to pretty much keep going back at night to deal with crimes and missions, investigate, discover things. And so this living world ideology is actually something that they are putting into implementation. The entire world is going to continue to just regenerate and respawn side missions and all kinds of activities as you go down the road in playing the game. Now, earlier when the developers actually mentioned this, for those of you who may or may not know, Patrick Redding had actually alluded to this a long time ago. And in that time frame, I mentioned something along the lines of, that particular ideology or methodology, whatever you want to call it, an implementation, gave me vibes for a video game that I'd spent a lot of time playing. And it's actually very interesting to see this phenomenon come to life. In fact, another thing the IGN presenter mentioned was possibly some kinds of raids or some sort of an MMO aspect of this game. But this game doesn't necessarily qualify for an MMO because the co-op is only 2-player. Unless they have plans in expanding the co-op to 4-player, which maybe PlayStation had revealed in a sense and then went back to retract. That's a hypothesis. But it's kind of interesting to see that the game is actually going to that line of, progression in terms of its reveal where there will be endgame content. And the game is supposed to continue to be this world that brings you back to the game to play over and over again. Now, the game that this reminded me of is Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Not necessarily the Division 1, which I've played both games and I've played them extensively well. For those of you who probably know this channel, you understand that this is my second channel. My first channel on YouTube covered Tom Clancy's The Division for years. Now let me show you what I mean by this from The Division right here. The Division 2 is a game that was developed according to its creative director, Julian Garrity, in order for it to be able to have a living world system. The living world system meant that enemy NPCs will spawn across the map every time. After you close the map for a little bit, you come back, enemy NPCs will have activities in specific locations called control points, and then they'll also have activities around the world in different forms of facets. So they'll probably take over a small territory in some cases called territory controls. They'll do resource transfers called resource convoys. And these are things that enemies are just doing. They're not necessarily crimes, but they are enemy activities that you can do to gain XP and so on and so forth. I think this is where it stops, though, when you kind of look at it with Gotham Knights, because the Division, it's all about the gear and the grind game. In Gotham Knights, it's not necessarily the case. If you notice right now, it's popping right there. I mean, I don't know if you just saw a grenade. An enemy just tossed a grenade, and there he is right there fighting with some, friendly NPCs. That's pretty much, the way the game is going to be going. You're going to see friendlies. You're going to also see enemies. This is a friendly right here. So the world is actually, in a sense, vibing. You can log in at any time and play. Now, this brings a conversation to mind where I've already mentioned this many times. I've said that the game Gotham Knights, one of the reasons you're probably not going to be seeing a game like it, run on the old generation console, even though games like The Division was able to run on PlayStation 4, is The Division actually is run on your console for some tasks, and then on the server for things like AI and some other things that are very heavy on your machine. This is confirmed by Frederick Thailander. And so with The Division, you actually have to be connected to the internet to actually play the game. Gotham Knights, on the other hand, you don't have to be connected to the internet. So Gotham Knights gives you that gameplay experience where you don't necessarily have to be in an online connection. In The Division, I can actually log out, which is a server connection, and Division is an online service game. So you already see that difference, and so that's where The Division and Gotham Knights would deviate in a sense. So Gotham Knights will have its own single player elements, even though you can have activities continue to regenerate in the world. So even if you never connect to the internet, these parameters are designed to just maybe in a sense sporadically spawn, and they'll probably spawn in different locations, or they'll have maybe set of rules that they follow in order for you to be able to come back into the world and just play the game. I think this allows for longevity of the game, and pretty much allows for you to be able to play the game over time. And now it makes sense why the developers did not let you have to grind every night to be able to get your ability points, where you can basically share ability points between your different nights, and then overall the rest of the game in terms of doing activities to get the ability points needed, to get the gear needed and the blueprints needed, you can then start doing the different activities in the open world that are not necessarily villain story quests or missions or whatever it is. So this is a very interesting aspect of Gotham Knights that in a sense has me intrigued. Now, some people are, in a sense, averse to this. I showed The Division, and already some people already have an allergic reaction because many times I've made this comparison, and it's not a great comparison, but it's the best one that I know. And sometimes some folk have said, I'm not really a big fan of this entire, RPG-esque type game in a sense where the game continues to go. But the truth of the matter is this game actually carries out this entire premise in a lighter approach than many of these other games. And the way this game is actually structured, I don't think you have much to worry about. I've played The Division long enough where I can tell you that Gotham Knights seems to be very tame in those aspects. There are other things you need to be concerned about, in terms of Gotham Knights compared to, say, Tom Clancy's The Division. Tom Clancy's The Division, we even get test servers. The developers deploy, different versions of the game that they're trying to release on the test server on PC, and we're able to actually play it before it comes out. That's how much we've been playing this game with the developers, pretty much working in tandem with them to actually discuss aspects of the game. In Gotham Knights, it's not at that point just yet. Plus, what it does is it allows for the game to have continuity in a really cool, way that really does change the experience in a sense. So this is actually quite nice for most people. And at some point, if you decide you don't want to engage in this content after beating the game and maxing out your knights and all, then that's fine. And if you want to come back to the world and, destroy bad guys, say like maybe Elden Ring, that would be one example where everybody spawns, but it's somewhat predictable in a sense, and there's discovery as well. Then I think that's where Gotham Knights shares this RPG aspect from with that game to a specific aspect, especially with the discovery. And there's just so much in that small aspect that was discussed. I don't even think a video can actually encompass some of the weight of what this game is actually going, for in terms of its direction. And I think it starts to put a lot of things together. Things are making sense now at this point. At first we had a blurry picture. I had a blurry picture. But as the reveal started to come all the way from May and all of the above, it seemed like the dots were connecting. And so far, today's dot really has connected the most amount of, little pins for me. And I'll close out this video by actually putting this one thing that I've actually mentioned mostly in my videos. This was the hiring recommendations or the job listing for the community manager for Gotham Knights. Now, a long time ago, I think it was somewhere around 2019, there was a job listing posted on the Warner Brothers job sites for Warner Brothers Montreal for a community manager. And in that job listing, the community manager was someone who was supposed to come into the game and relate to the community in order to have the community, be excited to log into the game every day, by introducing possibly activities, goals and all of that stuff in order to have this experience that continues to go on and on and on. I think that was one of our very first indicators that Gotham Knights was going to be going this direction, but we were still trying to get what the picture looked like. But now it's quite certain. And with all of the hush hush, it opens the door for a whole bunch of other things in this game. Imagine bringing new playable characters down the road. Imagine bringing new story experiences down the road. Imagine bringing Bruce Wayne down the road. I think we're in for a treat with Gotham Knights from an experiential side. There are some areas that I feel probably could be better, but I've already expressed those concerns in the past. But for what this game is wanting to be, I think it still holds my interest to this point. And for those who may think, well, I don't necessarily understand all the nuances, well, you can't necessarily take all of my comparisons at face value because they are comparisons based on the perceptions and experiences I've had before. So you would have to experience the game yourself, or at least see the game in its full experience for you to be able to realize, okay, this is exactly what this is. And this is why I always advise, my community members to kind of wait up for, video games to have reviews and have other people play the game and all of the above. But some people are like, we're not waiting. We're just going to jump in and see what it's like. That's fine too. But anyways, I wanted to share this with you guys, and let me hear your thoughts in the comment section because this is very interesting. We're going to have different opinions, people from all sides, but it'll be interesting to see how everybody actually reacts to this news. So talk to me in the comment section, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon. Peace out.